Steve's Weekly Wrap-Up is filmed live in front of a comic shop audience. Really? Just me? Last one clap. Really?
Oh, hey, it's Green Machine Comics. We're gonna play with this. We got these comic book dividers, and they're green, and we have no idea if we can do this with this kind of green, like if it's a green screen. But if it works, my head is gone. I don't know if it works.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go?
I don't know. Otherwise, it's just gonna be me waving around this thing, looking weird.
I might not edit it just to see you do that.
I don't know. I don't feel like we should jump right into books right away.
Tell me that story about what just happened, man.
Well, I mean, that's funny. I wanted to talk about the Prius thing.
Talk about the thing, then.
Okay. Me and Yogi were driving home one night, I don't know, 2 weeks ago or something, and this Prius driver was about to be passed by some guy who was driving like a fast, I think it was like a Mustang. What do you think?
Yeah, it was definitely a racer car.
It was like a race car.
Yeah.
And he's going to be passed, and the Prius driver had enough of whatever shenanigans he'd been dealing with that day. So he starts swerving back and forth, speeding up to cut the guy off. And when I mean swerving, I mean like full on like skidding, swerving in the lane. Like he was driving fast, like weaving in and out of traffic. Like it was nutty. We got over to the side, but then we watched it, and it went on for like 10.
It was brutal, man.
Yeah, it was like 10 minutes.
It was like watching Daytona.
And then he's in front of us, so he's on the far left lane. So there's like 5 lanes of traffic, and at the end of it, he just cuts completely over, squealing tires, squeals past us in front of everyone, and just barely makes it onto this exit. It was the nuttiest thing I've seen in a long time. So we started using Prius as a gauge for insanity.
Yes.
Or not caring. We're like, look, I'm a Prius driver, and I clearly have nothing left to give. I have 0 Fs to give. So that became the joke. Don't mess with Prius drivers.
Yeah.
They literally don't care. They're driving something around that they don't care. They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. So okay, so we're gonna get into books. So this was a very interesting week for comics. It was really, really hit or miss on some things. I had a really good time with a lot of books, and then, I don't know, a couple really missed me real hard. So we're going to talk about that. The first is Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider. I'm super excited for the Spider-Geddon stuff, but I'm worried that they're starting to oversaturate the way they did with Infinity Wars, kind of. With granted, I think the Infinity Wars thing is all based on a gimmick, and I think that they just dusted off this event because of the Into the Spider-Verse movie coming, so they knew everyone was going to be into it. So Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, she winds up in another part of the multiverse. Her watch is damaged. She's got to tap on Peter Parker of that universe, and she's got to also tap on Mary Jane of that universe. And she comes to find out that the Green Goblin of this particular universe she's trapped in is actually her. It's Gwen Stacy. So she's got to sort of deal with that. And I didn't have a bad time with it. I just didn't have a good time with it. It was just kind of... It sort of seems like filler. And I get that they're setting this up where she's going to fight herself in another form. But I didn't have the best time with it. So I think if you are a Ghost Spider fan and you know who you are, you're probably going to collect this. If you're collecting all the Spider-Geddon stuff, you're probably going to collect this. But if you're just reading it for the story, I think this one is wholly skippable with just my premise alone. It feels to me like filler, like they spend the entire book setting this up, and it's just going over and over and over and over it. So I didn't care for it. There wasn't a lot of action. It wasn't a lot of fun. Next was Spider-Girls. And this takes place, basically, I think it's May Day. So May Parker and Annie Parker and Spider-Woman are all kind of teamed up. Well, I guess they're all Spider-Woman, technically. So they're all kind of teamed up while May and Annie Parker's parents, who are Peter and Mary Jane, go off to fight the Inheritors. So they're sort of dealing with their universe. And there's a weird Osborn mutation in this one, and the inheritors show up, and it goes about as bad as it could. But this Spider-Geddon book was actually not bad. I didn't have the best time with it. I wasn't like jumping up and cheering, but it wasn't boring. I had a much better time. There was a lot more action in this one than the Spider-Gwen one. So I would recommend that one if you're a Marvel fan. Next we have Black Panther, and I want to go over this. So I didn't know this character because I've kind of jumped in on this. But in case you're catching up to it, his name is Njidaka. Njidaka. I like that name. It's not as cool as M'Baku. Not as cool as M'Baku, but so this is Njidaka. And so this is Black Panther in space. Pretty much T'Challa's been caught in an intergalactic revolution. The revolution is led by M'Baku, but he's going up against Njidaka, and there's a god in the story. The god is Set. Or not Set. Set's the wrong Egyptian god. Bast, the Egyptian god of cats, of course.
Not the bird with the bird being the word.
No, I think that's Phoenix. That's Phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bast. Without spoiling too much, so we need to talk about this. So last season, it felt like with Marvel, it was the season of overpowered. They put Weapon Hex with X-23.
Yeah.
They're just Wolverine is the Phoenix, has the Phoenix Force. Everything was overpowered last season. This season seems to be the season of symbiotes, and there are symbiotes in play here. And I'm not going to go beyond that, but it's building towards a symbiote fight, and
Is that a symbiote we're looking at right there?
yes, indeed.
Oh,
There's one of them is a symbiote.
okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it. I don't
Okay,
want to
alright,
spoil it beyond that. I'm just going to tell you that it feels to me like everything at the end of fall and the beginning of winter is all symbiote related. And maybe it's just coming on the heels of Venom or whatever else, but man, they sure throw them in a lot of stories. So maybe there's an event coming that we don't know about. Maybe after the Spider-Geddon, we're going to get Venom-Geddon. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about this book. This is a #1, Riri Williams' Ironheart. I had been looking forward to this book. Riri had filled in for Iron Man for a while there, and this is her solo book. I love the look of her armor. I love the character too. Riri's pretty darn funny. So she's basically she's got a lab set up at Cambridge, and she's making inventions, and it's sort of formulaic. Some villain attacks. There's like world leaders someplace she's got to go help and deal with that. But hey, she tells the villain to kick rocks. Yeah. Which sold it for me. The second it said kick rocks, I was like, Riri Williams, I love you. Because that's like a mainstream term now, huh?
Yeah.
But that term originated.
That came from the Army.
That came from the Army. The Army was saying that. Maybe probably the Marines too, but the Army was definitely saying kick rocks before everyone else. So I loved it. I had a really, really good time with this, and the art is very exceptional. Really exceptional. I like the art of her book. So Riri Williams, #1, I would say go pick this up. Ironheart. Next is Batman Detective Comics, The Fate of Two-Face. Now, in case you haven't been paying attention, Two-Face has been acting pretty out of character, or maybe in character, because for Harvey Dent it's in character, but for Two-Face it's out of character. At any rate, he saved a bunch of the Gotham City Police Department, he saved Commissioner Gordon at one point, and he helped Batman save all of Gotham City. And that's what this book takes place, or that's what involves this book, is basically Harvey Dent and Two-Face is presumed dead from a big sacrifice in that fight. And so they're having a funeral for Harvey Dent. Not Two-Face, but Harvey Dent. And celebrating Harvey Dent. And I like it. I like it a lot. I had a good time with this book. I mean, I think Two-Face was chained to Batman at the beginning of All-Star Batman during the beginning of Rebirth. Mm-hmm. And him as a character has grown so much further than I thought he was. And while he's sort of been the standard for Detective Comics and All-Star Batman for a good portion of the time, I think Bane has been the standard for Batman. So I really had a good time with this book, and I think you could pick this book up and not following Detective Comics too much before this, and still have a really good time with this book. There's a good fight, and I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, I would say pick this up if you're a DC fanboy. This was a good one. Next we have Action Comics. So, yep, Action Comics, Superman on the cover. And I like that all of the DC books have a friendly reminder that Aquaman is coming, December 21st. But so this is the Red Cloud, and you can tell from the cover it says Red Cloud revealed, and so Superman at one point in this book is obviously going to go up against the Red Cloud, but the Red Cloud has been a villain that's sort of been murdering mafia bosses, and at the same time they're not sure the Red Cloud's intentions. Meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of crime syndicates that are sort of coming together and dealing with stuff their way. One thing I really liked about the beginning of this book, I think we talked about the Platinum Kryptonite with that one Batman book. So this, at the very beginning of this book, they unveil this thing. I think I've seen it before, but I can't remember. So it's like a rotary phone dial, and it's got 098765 and then Hero. And it's called the Hero Dial, and some guy is trying to sell it to some mafia boss, and he basically says, like, if you dial Hero, you'll become a hero. And they're like, well, I'll become Black Canary, and he's like, no, you become a hero. You're a totally unique hero, except you're given a name. And there's no explanation beyond that. At one point, somebody dials it, it doesn't work. They say maybe it's counterfeit. I don't know if maybe it's out of charges, but I thought it was really, 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 really cool. That's a cool concept. I hadn't been following Action Comics. I gotta tell you, I've maybe read one other Action Comics this month, or not this month, because they're bi-weekly. These last couple of months, I've maybe read one other, and I had a good time with that one. I had a good time with this one. There is obviously Red Cloud is gonna go head to head with Superman at one point. You can kind of tell from the cover, but it was good. And when Red Cloud was revealed, I was genuinely shocked by who it was. So I think you should pick this one up if you're a DC fan.
Two jumping in points we're looking at now, huh?
Yeah, for both Detective Comics and Action Comics.
Nice.
So, yeah, good times. Action Comics, I mean, I was still a little confused as to what was going on, but, I pieced it together. Detective Comics was far easier.
Okay.
Next, we're going to talk about TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and we're going to talk about the Macro series, Leonardo. Not enough people are reading TMNT these days, which is a real bummer, because, while I think they've gone back to the Archie series style headbands, where in the original series they all had like red headbands, and now they've all got the regular, their Archie style colors. These books are really keeping in theme with like the original series TMNT. They're gritty. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of heart. The art is good on these particular ones, and I had a really, really good time with this one. This one centers around Leonardo. He's currently thrust in the role of leader of the Hamato clan, and Splinter is leader of the Foot clan, and Splinter is always going to act in the best interest of the clan, which puts him pretty much on a collision course with his sons, and they're always worried about their dad, and they want their dad back. And so there's a lot of heart in this story. It puts them on another collision course with another part of the old Foot Clan, and I had a real good time. There's good mutants in this story. There was a lot of action. These Macro series books for TMNT are really good. I can't recommend them enough. So I think if you've ever been a TMNT fan, you should go and pick these up. So I'm trying to look at the camera, so I hope I'm getting that. Next is TMNT, and this is the current ongoing TMNT issue 88 from IDW. And this story centers around a big, giant battle involving, like, the Krang aliens? I forget their names.
The interdimensional beings.
Whole bunch of mutants, like Ninja Turtles. A bunch of other mutants called the Animutants, which I assume means they were like animals and Anahumans. They were humans at one point. I don't know. It has cyborgs in it. It has Slash, which was like the giant snapping turtle in one of the series. So this was a really, really good story, and I think it's coming to a close. So if you like fight scenes and you like Ninja Turtles, I recommend picking this one up. Although I think you should pick up the one before it, because the one before it's a little easier of a jumping in point. This one's kind of harder. I still had a really, really good time with this book, I got to tell you. And it's got one of my new favorite characters in it. He is, I'm trying to find a picture of him. He's a hermit crab with a dumpster on his back. And the dumpster, like, pulls out guns and all types of stuff. And it's just a fun character. I want to get him, like, on a t-shirt or something. I hope his name is Hermit, but I haven't checked. I think it's Herman. Herman the Hermit Crab. So yeah, TMNT. If you're not reading TMNT, I don't know why you're not reading TMNT. So the books you should read is TMNT. You can't go wrong with the Macro series. You can't go wrong with, and I think TMNT Universe is all right. I say all right sort of hesitantly. I like the art. The story's sort of iffy. The one you should avoid, I think by all costs, that I haven't read a good book from in the last I don't know how many months, is no, not Bebop and Rock. That's terrible too. Avoid that Bebop and Rocksteady miniseries. The one that you should avoid is TMNT Urban Legends.
Ooh, yeah.
Have not had a good time with TMNT Urban Legends, and I think the art is not. It's not my cup of tea. Maybe it's somebody else's. They're doing weird stuff with it. Raph's got his face scarred, so he's running around with Casey's mask. Donatello's sort of been injured so bad that he's died and been reformed as a cyborg. And I guess these are logical places you go where Raph might get scarred and you know, Donnie might get fused with technology. If I was a kid, this is kind of the storyline I would come up with. It doesn't really do it for me. It's not. I'm not having a good time with that series. I'm still reading it because I'm a TMNT fan. Not having a good time with it. Next, we're gonna go on to Aquaman, Justice League, Drowned Earth. This is the finale. So this is the finale of Drowned Earth. Superman's had been blinded in one eye, so he's running around in an eye patch. And at one point, they pick up, I don't know, seafarer clothes. So Superman's like running around in leathers. It's the weirdest thing. Mira is using her power to keep water away from everyone so that they can fight. So Wonder Woman, Superman, and the Flash can fight. Flash has been infected, so he's sort of using his body and his speed force to kind of keep the infection off, but he's slowly transforming. And meanwhile, they're basically fighting cosmic gods that are turning everything that touches the flooding world's waters into cosmic sea creatures. Yeah, I guess that's the way. Oh, and Aquaman's lost his powers. Black Manta took his powers in like the last issue. So basically, they're screwed. The whole world is transformed at this point, and they're sort of going from there. It works out. It was a good event. I had a good time with it. I didn't hate this event. I thought there was a lot of fun to it. It's basically, I think we've said it so many times, but I'm going to say it one more time. It's Zack Snyder doing The Floor is Lava, and that's entirely what this event is. Still fun. Had a good time. It wraps it up. It's kind of nice. I think, I don't want to spoil it, but you know, it was a good event. And there's soups in like biker leathers. I don't know.
What the heck is that about?
It's like they say like, put on these clothes, they'll protect you. And so he's like, right, I think it's like Poseidon's leathers or something.
Okay. Poseidon used to ride, man.
There's like little to no. I can't remember what it was, but like they show up on a boat and they're like, put the clothes on, they'll protect you. And like Soups is like, okay, and then he looks like Superboy Prime running around. Like, it's just, I don't know. I had a fun time with it though. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about Black Panther versus Deadpool. So on the cover it shows the Avengers chasing Black Panther, and it says Avengers disassemble him. This totally happens in the issue, by the way, and that's what Deadpool's saying. It does not happen in the issue at all. That is not in the issue. So I like those jokes.
Yes.
I love those jokes. So obviously this event is entirely comedic relief, I guess you could say, comedy relief.
It's funny.
It's very formulaic. In fact, it's so formulaic that Deadpool comments on how it's formulaic in the first issue. He's like, yo, we're gonna fight. There's gonna be a misunderstanding. We're gonna fight again, and then the big bad's gonna show up, and we're gonna team up. Well, that's kind of what's happened. So what happened is basically Wakanda figured out how to cut Deadpool so he wouldn't regen, but he can use this blue gel to regen. And so he stumbles upon some poachers killing a zebra, so he cuts off the zebra's head and sticks it on his arm, because that's not messed up. So he's running around with a living zebra's head on one of his arms. Okay, so we got cut off.
Yeah, the zebra arm.
The zebra arm? Did we talk about the zebra arm?
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully we got that stuff about the zebra arm. It was really, really funny. So let me explain something with our camera. We found out that the particular camera we bought never records more than, I think, 20 minutes? 20 or 30 minutes? So we always have to restart it. So we're going to get a new camera. But sorry about that. That's why you get these weird jarring like moments where the camera like jolts out every few minutes. Next, we're going to go into Jim Henson's Labyrinth. Now, I should preface this by saying I'm a gigantic Jim Henson fanboy. I grew up loving the Muppets. I think I carried around a Fozzie Bear puppet for like I don't know, 10 years of my life. And then, like, when I was, like, a raver in the 90s, I ran around with a backpack with a Fozzie Bear puppet, like pinned to it, because I was a really cheesy raver. So, anyways, huge Henson fanboy. I love the Muppets. I love the Dark Crystal. I love the Labyrinth. I love Sesame Street. I grew up, my whole, like, childhood was Henson. Did not have a good time with this book. Not at all. I don't know what the deal was. It's a bunch of short stories centering in the Labyrinth universe. It involves, fairies and trolls and were they called trolls? Goblins, not trolls. They were goblins, fairies, the people caught within. David Bowie's character's in there. So I wanted to have a good time with this. I really, really wanted to have a good time with this. But the stories were a little weird, not exciting, not really fleshed out. I wanted to see more. So I don't know. If you're a gigantic Henson fanboy, or if you really, really love Labyrinth, pick it up. But as someone who is a fanboy of this stuff, I didn't have a good time with it. So I would say you could pass this, and it wouldn't kill you. Next, we're going to talk about a book that Yogi's making me talk about. Yogi made me order this. It's the weirdest series ever. We're going to be carrying it in the store. It's called Albert Einstein Time Mason.
Yes.
So,
this is number 2.
Number 2. Albert Einstein had to take a quantum leap in the future to protect his brain, to get his brain back from Nazis.
Yeah.
From time Nazis. And so now he's jumping through time to fight the time Nazis. And he winds up in ancient Greece. And I think there's like an ancient monument that is like a gate. It's the something gate. The, oh my god, I'm gonna find it. The Caspian Gates. So he's got to protect the Caspian Gates from time Nazis. This is the silliest, cheesiest like premise for a book ever. And it works. Oddly enough, it works. It doesn't take itself seriously. I had a good time with it. It's silly. It's like, I guess you could say it's like Albert Einstein if Albert Einstein... It's Albert Einstein, Doctor Who, Bill and Ted's...
James Bond...
And Raiders of the Lost Ark all thrown together. It's
That's why I liked it, man, yeah.
There's a lot of action. There's a lot of funny one-liners. I think at one point, one guy says, "What we do in life echoes in eternity," and Albert Einstein says, "Oh, that's catchy." So it's silly. It's time Einstein fighting Nazis. I don't know. I had a good time with it. I like cheesy stuff, though. It's definitely cheesy. It's heavy on the cheese. Lots of cheese. Crafty. Okay, we're going to talk about Books of Magic, the Sandman series. I'm going to go ahead and say, so the Sandman series, in case you don't know, they've rebooted Books of Magic. They've rebooted, let's see, it's Books of Magic, Lucifer, and The Dreaming, which are the 3 favorites, I think. And then they're also doing a new one called House of Whispers. And I will say that I think the Books of Magic is the easiest jumping off point for everyone who is new to the series. If you're not new to the series, you can probably pick up all the books and have a good time with it. And this is no different. I had a really good time following this character as he's learning magic. I always forget his name. Oh, Tim. So Tim and Dr. Rose, who are on the cover. So he's learning magic. He's got to sort of learn the rules of magic, and then he's got a book that sort of tells him spells when he's ready to learn them, but he's not always ready to learn them. And so they're sort of fielding magic while he's fumbling through it, and it's good. It's the Books of Magic. So if you know this series, you pretty much know what you're getting into. I didn't have a bad time at all with issue number 2. I actually can't wait to read more. So that one's good. Next, we're going to talk about Titans. So, this cover is painful.
Yeah, man.
Really painful. So, we know that, let's see, Kid Flash, which Wally West. So, yes.
Spoiler?
Well, we could call spoiler, but here this happened months ago. Yeah. So, let's see, Heroes in Crisis. Wally West died, and Arsenal died. And so then that leaves good old Dick Grayson, who has now got brain damage and is not really Dick Grayson anymore. He's Rick Grayson. And they're all X'd out on this picture. And it's so sad.
One by one.
And it says, and one by one, because that's not ominous. So, as a DC fanboy, I still kind of had a good time with this. It centers around dealing with the White Martian, which is Miss Martian. God, my brain. So she's gone like full White Martian in this, and then the Titans are dealing with that, and they're sort of stranded because they've been shot across the galaxy after the events of Drowned Earth, which they played a really crucial role in. They were only in it for like one single book, but they were an absolute crucial role. They got on board of one of the ships, and they got a whole bunch of data back to Batman. And so that was really cool. That felt like old Titans. This, however, also, it kind of feels like filler. I mean, they're setting it up for something. There's something going on with Raven. I can't really expand more on it without spoiling it, but it's just sort of filler. It's kind of the Titans reeling from the from the events of Drowned Earth and sort of dealing with themselves, and there's no really big bad in it. I don't know. It's a wholly skippable book, but if you're... I just managed to hit the mic. If you're a Titans fan or you're a DC fanboy and you love the Titans, you're probably going to pick this up. Anyone else, I think it's a fully skippable book, and it saddens me to say that because that last Titans where they were in the Drowned Earth event was so good.
I thought they were going to ramp up the Titans from there on out.
I thought they were going to ramp them up. It was fully like a good Titans event, or good Titans book. Okay, so next we're going to talk about Invader Zim. I should preface this by saying I really like Invader Zim, and Yogi does not. Does not at all. So I had a great time with this book. I was really surprised by how fun it was. It plays out like an Invader Zim episode. It's really confusing. Basically, Dib wakes up, and Zim is his brother, and then even Gaz thinks Zim is her brother. And it sort of goes from there, and basically Dib's got to figure out what's going on and get to the bottom of it. So it plays out like an Invader Zim episode. There's a lot of comedy in it. I had a great time. So yeah, this one totally worth picking up. And I think with most of the Zim books, like you can jump in anywhere and not be confused because it's just going to be antics in an episode pretty much. But yeah. So if you like Johan Vasquez, you should go pick this up. Next is DC's Nuclear Winter Special, and I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. I've not been happy with most of the DC holiday specials. We've got two of the trades on our shelves, and we've got this too. And
the reasoning makes sense, but come on.
The reason I'm not happy with them is because, look, if you're going to have a DC holiday special, you have a character that is absolutely DC's Grinch. He shows up as DC's Grinch in the DC Universe Online. He's showed up as DC's Grinch at some points where they've had to tell him that Santa isn't real, and that is Larfleeze. And if you don't include Larfleeze in a DC holiday special, it's not a DC holiday special. I'm sorry, I completely disagree. But I'm a huge George Lanner fanboy, so you can take it with a grain of salt. DC's Nuclear Winter Special is a bunch of self-contained stories centering around the apocalypse, and it's basically one guy is sort of caught out on his own in the apocalypse, and it's the future apocalypse, so they're all like killing people with oogle tattoos, which I'm sure is a Google reference, and so I guess it's a Silicon Valley apocalypse, and the guy's like, whoa, I know a whole bunch of new stories about Batman, Superman, and such, and they're like, okay, well, we won't eat you if you tell us some stories. So they go from there. So it's like apocalypse superhero stories, which we don't hear enough of apocalyptic superhero stories if you take all the Crisis events out. So I don't know. I had a good time with it. I'm a DC fanboy. I think if you're a Marvel fan, you would not have a good time with this. And I think if you don't like winter specials, or you're unaccustomed to the sort of holiday stuff that they do in comics, you probably should avoid this. So yes. Next, we're going to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man, and this is the variant cover. This is the variant cover because I kind of have a thing for Black Cat. So we put her, she's on the cover. This story centers around her and Spidey, and I guess Mary Jane as well. So it's basically Black Cat is sort of, her and Spidey are teaming up. And she used to date Spidey, but she can't remember who he was, because Doctor Strange, like after the events of Spider-Verse, not Spider-Verse, Civil War, after the events of Civil War, Doctor Strange basically erased everyone's memory so that they didn't know who Spider-Man's identity was. And the unfortunate side effect of that was his ex-girlfriend, Black Cat, has no idea who he is. So that gets wrapped up in the story, and it's pretty touching. I think for that reason alone, this is totally worth reading. There's a lot of action in this, too. It's a good time. I had a good time with this book. And I'm saying that as someone who tends to favor the DC over the Marvel split. I had a really good time with this book, but I've been having fun with Spider-Geddon, like a lot of fun with Spider-Geddon, so you can take that view with a grain of salt if you like. Next, we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about probably the most painful storyline there is.
Get the Kleenex now.
And that is Heroes in Crisis. Me and Yogi have been talking about this. So this Heroes in Crisis thing, this is a mask they make a lot of, or they offer the heroes to wear if they don't want to reveal their personality in the common areas. And that is talked about in this. And this mask keeps coming up. And I want to point out how this mask looks a lot like Psycho Pirate's mask. And I think there's a reason for it. Because Psycho Pirate's powers are emotional manipulation, and this whole story centers around emotions and how superheroes deal with PTSD. So I think that's a very, very good choice on the artist's part and the writer's part to include something that looks like that. So this story has been so many ups and downs. I don't know where it's going. You think, I think in the first book you think it's Harley at first, and then it turns out it's Booster Gold, and then it flip-flops, and you don't know who is hurting people. In this book it is revealed, and spoiler warning, if you don't want this to be spoiled, you could turn some of this off. I'm not going to reveal the whole book, I promise, but I'm going to talk about some of the things in this book. So it is revealed that the center itself has sort of a danger room kind of vibe to it. Basically, each person attending the center is allowed a treatment, and the treatment means they go into the room, and whatever they request, it becomes like real. So they've got all these characters that are dealing with trauma, like something traumatic that happened to them. So they're either revisiting it, or they're talking to themselves, or they're just finding some way to cope with one of it. And the most touching one was a character that I really didn't know that well, and I'm sure other people are going to be like, oh, I totally know that character. But Lagoon Boy, right? Mm-hmm. Lagoon Boy. And should we read that part, or should we not?
Oh, man. Save it for after.
I don't want to spoil it. But basically, Lagoon Boy is so touching, because anyone who's ever dealt with a traumatic event, you know, sometimes you can't sleep, sometimes you can't, just doing anything, you relive it. Like eating, walking, just the way the light is in a room sometimes, you just think about it over and over.
Sound.
And poor old Lagoon Boy is the perfect example of dealing with that kind of trauma. And what he's doing in the story is not something I would ever do. But it's really the way he explains why he's doing it, and the reason it's haunting him is so emotional and so deep. And I loved it. And I didn't know that character at all, but by the end of this book, I was in love with that character. And that's really some good storytelling right there. So, Heroes in Crisis, if you aren't in this series yet, you need to go. I wouldn't say probably don't go start with the third, because the third wasn't the best one, I don't think. I think the first one, the opening, was just heart-wrenching. Intense. Really, really good series. I know that I think Derek McCaw from Fanboy Planet was saying that he's going to give up the Heroes in Crisis because it's just too gritty, it's too real, it's too shocking for... I think he said... His terms were he uses comic books for escapism, and it's a little too serious and dark. I think is what he said. Don't quote me if I'm misquoting you, Derek. I'm sorry. But I can understand that if you don't like gritty or dark or sad or deep, if any of that doesn't appeal to you, you need to skip these books, because these books are way deep. And I think it's a testament to what Tom King can do if you take the reins off, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Heroes in Crisis, great time with this book. I also the artists are amazing. Whoever I think it's Weeks, Mann, and Mori. So yeah, the artists are outstanding on this. And I guess that's all of our books for this week.
Oh man, you can't leave us like that though. We need a palate cleanser for that.
We need a palate cleanser. I don't know what kind of palate cleanser. You want to talk about the old ladies?
Oh, sure.
I had two old ladies show. So Yogi has made a sign over there on the wall, and it's on our whiteboard, and it says "Ce n'est pas un arbre," and he put a tree up there. And the whole play on words is just I think it's the Salvador Dali. This is not a pipe, but showing a picture of a pipe, and it's just nonsense. It doesn't need to make sense to be art. And he was just throwing that up there just to be funny. And I had these two old ladies show up today, and they're standing in the doorway for a minute talking to each other, and then they turn to me and they're like, "What's an arbor?" I was like, I'm sorry. And she's like, "An arbor, an arbor." I was like, what are you talking about? Finally she points, and I was like, oh, it means this is not a tree. She's like, "This is not a tree?" And I was like, yeah, it's like a play on Salvador Dali's This Is Not a Pipe. She's like, well, that doesn't make any sense. She turns to her friend. She's like, "It means tree, but that is not a tree." And then she's like, "Why is that not a tree?" And they're walking out, and I hear them go, "Well, it's Green Machine Comics, but maybe that's why it's not a tree."
I'm just hoping they got in their car and existentialism just slammed on them or something.
Yeah.
Oh.
You opened their mind to modern art right then, Yogi. You weren't even in the store. I laughed so hard.
I'll take a picture. I'll plug it in right here.
I picture these two old ladies now sitting with their phone, and they're like, "Let's just go to Google now and figure this out." Oh, okay.
Oh, well.
So that's our books for this week. It has been a trying week with Black Friday and just everything else. So we managed to get this out on Tuesday. I think it'll go live today.
Yeah.
So it'll go live today, and you guys get to see it before Wednesday, and we'll try to keep that steam going for next week. Bye.
Peace.